Okay, there we go. Comments will display. It's probably going to be backward, but if you're not from here, you won't notice because I'm just sketching a view of the local mountain range. So I'm not left-handed. Not charcoal today, working with the pencils, by the way. And I'm keeping up with the Discord server and what's being posted. It's an interesting year so far. We're only 8 days in, and we've got what looks to be the setup for a winter of love. By the way, is my audio working? I always got to double check that. My view is somewhat obstructed. I saw one I really liked. I saw this place I need to get to. What's up, Thirst? By the way, a lot of these charcoal drawings that I'm doing, most of them are cottonwood trees, but I listed them all on Ko-Fi. And I'm selling them in sets of 3. And I will be moving beyond these landscapes soon. I did sign up for an art class. They had one option where it was like 3 hours long. I think 3 hours long every Saturday. But I'm doing the one that's 2 days. And the campus I'm at is on the far, far west side of town, where I have a view of the entire city and these mountains. In fact, I finished watching Pluribus, and there was a scene in there where when the main character and her alien girlfriend are looking at the train. And I think I can get to that exact spot. I also had this idea of going around to the different Breaking Bad locations, because they do this Breaking Bad tour where you get on this RV, this simulated mobile meth lab, and you take a tour of Albuquerque, as one does. And all of the major locations from the movie are visited. So I thought maybe I'll just go follow the meth RV, the mobile lab, and do drawings of each of these scenes. And there's one in particular I want to go to. It's the convention center where they have 12-foot tall statues of Walter White and Jesse Pinkman. I mean, there's murals. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of Breaking Bad tats as well. Somehow this character really tapped into something. So copaesthetic, sprightly sprite. I mean, the first season to me is very watchable. The rest of it, I think they're just making money. But because the first season really tells the story, it really goes through the whole character arc of Walter White getting his diagnosis and then going down this dark path. And I was very critical of it at first. I'm like, you're a chemistry teacher. You could become a tutor. There's other ways to make money. You don't have to become a drug kingpin. But after watching it, I can see the appeal. I mean, it was a very selfish and destructive thing to do, of course. But you have to watch it to, can't judge it until you've seen it. The storyline on its own merit. There must be a reason why people identify with it, though. I guess it's just the whole anti-hero thing. By the way, with this Twin Cities thing, this is a classic example of where your determination as to whether it's real or fake is not going to be solely based upon what footage you're shown. And if you listen to any of the pundits, it doesn't even matter. I mean, in the world stage, they believe whatever they are told, even if it looks fake. And to me, it looked like very well done special effects. Like action movie special effects, really not outside the realm of Hollywood, especially if you look at the size and scope of the thing. And there are many reasons why I've been suggesting here it's just probably staged, not worth overreacting to. But look at the reaction that it's getting. And I briefly turned into Owen, what is his name? Owen Schroyer. And he's blaming Pam Bondi for it. And he's talking about, maybe the debate as to whether it was justified or not. You see, they all operate within that universe where these things are assumed to be real. I mean, that's a litmus test. They all fail. They all failed the Charlie Kirk litmus test, but none of them are clued in, or they're operating within the system where they're supposed to bounce off of the official version. But I don't live in the universe where these things are assumed to be real until proven false, because the system's never going to tell on itself. And I'm looking at the way people are reacting to it, their emotions all tapped in, and then they go into the streets and they get involved. Mostly just burning calories and screaming. Most of them aren't going to be engaged in anything significant. And those that are likely, paid agitators or activists. What's up, Linda Curtis? By the way, our Discord is open. Go to ips.monster. It's been very productive in there. And I'm going to complete my list here. I have a list of terms and ideas and messages that seem to be prevalent throughout the zeitgeist at the moment, like the beehive thing, the alien as virus theme, mass extermination, the nuke theme. I mentioned how at the end of Pluribus, the last two words are atom bomb. And then, as Pippi Langstrup pointed out, and I saw an Al Jazeera article on this, Trump's going to resume nuclear tests after 33 years. That's the headline. And we all know the significance of 33 and fallout. Even Oppenheimer had the very conspicuous 33 built into it. Yeah, see, it looks cold. So you can see the mountain I'm painting back there. Sketching. Icy peaks. It looks cold, but it's actually not. So the hive mind has been a recurring theme. That's what Pluribus was about. And then bees. We've been talking about the significance of bees almost all year. And so there's something going on with each of these. So what I want to do is map out, like we used to do a lot of these mind maps. We need to start doing that again. And I've been thinking too, that the reason why we see a lot of these things is because of the symbolic value, that we are being propagated with overt messaging, subtle messaging, covert messaging, and symbolic messaging. And I've been thinking this way ever since really the last few months. I've been listening to Man and His Symbols. I've been listening to a lot of Carl Jung. Oh yeah, good point, Jamarian. Ice symbolism. They even show an ice hotel in Pluribus. Right. Not coincidental. There are no coincidences on the world stage, just as a general rule of thumb. It's like when you read a book or you watch a movie. No scene in there is random. It's all part of a build-up to something. There's a logical progression. And also, we have to point out this Jack Ryan thing went viral right before 1/7. And Jack Ryan is a Tom Clancy character. So got meta-scripter presence. And I brought this up the other day, too, on 1/6. Because, see, now the left has a martyr in Renee Good they have a martyr. Renee Nicole, and Nick has also been a reoccurring name for some reason. But they've got a martyr, and then January 6th, we have the martyr, Ashley Babbitt. And I was pointing out, Ashley Babbitt was wrapped in an American flag when she was shot in the neck, storming the Capitol. And how that's got to have some significance as well. The neck thing was really big. Izzy says, yep, and Pluribus, she's an author, and all her fans wore purple, and it was significant to her books. Well, also with the hive mind, you have collectivism is built into it. And the mayor of New York comes out and he says, we need to get rid of rugged individualism in favor of collectivism. So you got the beehive collectivism. And in Pluribus, that was really the main theme, was that this one individual was holding up progress. The whole human race was being held up from waking up and becoming one because she's stubborn. She doesn't want to give up her soul and join the hive. And Naked Gun had a theme, an Elon Musk-like character releasing a mind virus that makes everyone go violent. I mean, for about ever since Musk took over X, I've been talking about Elon Musk, Disease X, and this reoccurring theme of a X-born mind virus that causes mass violence and necessitates a global lockdown of the internet, like a digital pandemic. I've been talking about this Disease X thing ever since monkeypox, and at the same time Musk buying X. Well, that's what Naked Gun has. The Elon Musk character, the guy with the electric cars, literally has a mind virus he releases to make humanity go crazy and kill each other off, while the elite hide in the bunkers and enjoy the best in live entertainment, including Weird Al Yankovic. Well, think about the significance of that. Just like Fallout, the elite, bunkers, hive mind, Civil War, that kind of theme. And the guy who created or directed Civil War is the writer of 28 Days Later, where the chimps are watching violence on TV and catching it and then spreading it like a virus. Because they don't know it's fake, these chimps. The AI is being used to depopulate humanity and Pluribus due to eventual lack of resources in the future. Yeah, the depopulation theme. Now, in Begonia, you have the same thing. Aliens, hive mind, mass depopulation. It's all in there. And the idea of aliens being indistinguishable from real people, that's also kind of built into it, which ties into a lot of the recent discussions I've heard around aliens. And it might even be the case with this new Steven Spielberg. Someone had mentioned this before, that maybe it insinuates that 1 billion people out of the 8 billion are actually aliens, like they're already here. But one of the recurrent themes here has been collectivism, the bees, the hive mind. And in Begonia, the main character is a beekeeper. And the reason why he wants revenge against the aliens is he says that they are killing off the bees so they can eventually wipe us out, wreck our ecosystem, killing the bees. And the idea that bees are being killed off is kind of it's not a new idea in conspiracy circles. Busy says, I've been watching Better Call Saul, thinking about how that and Breaking Bad shows Mexicans as dangerous hombres and drug dealers. Propaganda for Trump. Interesting. Yeah, that is kind of true. Breaking Bad, which is connected to Better Call Saul, and then it has the same actress who's in this new one, Pluribus. They do characterize Albuquerque in a certain way. I mean, I would still suggest that Breaking Bad's more of a documentary than not. Also, the color green and its ties to the class war, the Antifa code built into Wicked, that ties into this as well. And at that event in the Twin Cities, which by the way happened really close to where George Floyd was killed, quote unquote, there was a guy there with a green jersey that was sprayed in the face with some kind of, like, looked like bear spray, and then someone else with a green umbrella. So the umbrellas were a big symbol during the outbreak of the BLM riots, if you recall. Remember, the riot started with the umbrella man, the guy with the umbrella smashing up the AutoZone before they set it on fire. But all of these are symbols. So what I want to do is I want to mind map these specific symbol complexes, like again the rage monkey and all of its occurrences in the last couple of years, the green, the bees, collectivism, and the hive mind alien thing. I want to kind of consolidate our research in these matters because much of what we talk about is just political figures, personalities, and influencers. But there's a whole other level to this. And that's the symbolism. And we started talking about this when I was getting into the Saturnian stuff, which again, all of this deserves its own map. We'll whiteboard this stuff when I get back this evening. So tonight we're going to do some live whiteboarding. Busy says, interesting, the woman killed his name Good. I can't read the rest of your comment. By the way, I want to say thanks to whoever that was that purchased a bunch of memberships. Small screen, so I can't scroll back and read your comments, but these live whiteboards, these whiteboard videos are for members. So it's one of the benefits of having that blue wrench. Appreciate the channel support. Like I said, I'm planning on resuming the PSYOP trading cards this month if I can. I have a plan for that. And books are out, so if you check your tracking numbers. Oh, the Wicked movie, the new Wicked movie is called For Good. Okay, I didn't know that. And I've yet to see it. I need to go watch it. I reviewed the first one. Jamirin says, do your dreams seem more synthetic and less organic these days? Lots of weird things going on. You know, I hadn't dreamed in years. It'd been like 7 years, no dreams. And then I moved out and all of a sudden I'm dreaming again. And my dreams have been very vivid, but I've been falling asleep listening to audiobooks. I fell asleep multiple times trying to finish Pluribus. And it's like these ideas are working their way in. Although this morning I woke up to a very vivid one of some lady handing me her baby. And I'm walking through a zoo and all the cages are open. And then the tigers are coming after the baby and me. I'm like, okay, what the hell does that mean? There must be some explanation. Maybe there's some video I watched or something I heard. But anyway, my point is this. If what I'm listening to when I'm sleeping turns into elaborate stories and gets into my head at that level, then the idea of, like that we're unconscious is kind of fallacious. Like we're always conscious. It's just not all being filtered through our center of awareness, our ego level awareness, but it's going somewhere. It's interacting. Mind viruses are being deployed. And this is another reason why I want to talk about the symbolic, the archetypes. Jamarian May says they did release all the animals from cages during Pluribus. Yeah, that was right. That was right. The animals had been released. Well, my quality of sleep has gone up tremendously. I think I lived in a state of like chronic stress because I tend to pick up what other people are carrying. I used to anyway. I don't know if I still do. I'm trying to be a little more closed off as far as, you get a little too empathetic, too open. We're like antenna. But now I'm alone 95% of the time and I sleep better. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think human beings are largely toxic. Yeah, who gifted those memberships? Whoever it is, thank you. I don't know who it is, but if you want to comment. I'll be listing more artwork tonight on Ko-Fi. And whatever doesn't sell tonight, I'm just going to throw onto eBay. All of this is going into the think tank. I'm starting school next week. And I was approved, so I will be covered through my entire degree plan. But I do need to make a down payment for the first one before my financial aid kicks in. But I'm doing this for a few reasons. Mostly completing my studies related to journalism, which has everything to do with what we're doing here. But there's a few other reasons as well, and it's just going to enhance what we're doing here. I'll be on a very regular schedule, and we're probably going to have an afternoon live stream at a set time between classes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Oh, is Big Hair Tsunami again? Nice. Yes, Big Hair Tsunami has been a great supporter of this channel. Appreciate you bringing all the 18-inch titanium blue wrenches. The exact kind of tool we use to beat Dave J into submission. Yeah, Poncho says, love the 24-hour play on TuneIn. I'll put links to that. IPS.monster has the same playlist. So I am doing a 24/7, and I'm doing the last 3 or 4 live streams on a loop. And I'm starting to throw in music again. And I'll throw in additional content as we go. So I'm taking a lot of writing classes. And, there's a format, AP format. There's certain standards that you have to meet. I think that, you can't rely on Grammarly and AI to do everything. You kind of can, but it shows. So I think it's just a practical thing to try to improve the product. And the Insider Tabloid is one of the main things I really want to see launch once the PSYOP trading cards are out there. So before the end of the year, I do want to get the tabloid going, and I want to get the IPS Press Club active. A lot of press pass carriers. And it may be necessary soon. We brought those out because of the lockdowns. Interesting how they orchestrate chaos abroad and domestically simultaneously. Yeah, someone had commented how, I think maybe it was Fakeologist. He was like, do you think that they take, like, the PSYOP entertainment complex, do they get holidays off? Like, are these people like regular government workers? Because it seems like there was nothing going on until we got past New Year's. Although we did have a New Year's event, a tragic fire, if you think it was real. I kind of don't think it was now. In fact, there was something on Netflix that almost looked like it scene for scene. And we'll get into that as well, because fire was a big theme. The fire. You had the burning cathedral, you had the fireworks, you had the Guy Fawkes mask, the person who started the fire. And why wouldn't we expect them to speak with and to create content with subtext and with archetypes and symbols? I mean, that's one of the things we do see. But I think these things have always been overly mystified. Like, this is a ritual. What does that even mean? I'm tired of hearing truthers say, oh, it's just a ritual. What does that even mean? Like, maybe it's a form of communication because the minds behind this are very well aware that we can be communicated to, even in our dreams, and that they can hit us with archetypal messaging, symbols that still resonate, that still embed, that still operate as meme plexes. Essentially, we're being infected with mind viruses all the time. Yeah, Jermaine Mace says fire and ice, two opposing spiritual forces at play. Now, there is something to that because the summer of love, is typified with, well, by fire. If you remember the summer of love, they were burning everything. And now we've got this winter of love encroaching. Yo, there's a 79-year-old millionaire asking for someone to give him a son to carry his fortune, says lasers go pew pew. You mean he's looking for a girlfriend? Can't he just go on a dating site like anybody else? Why does he need to announce it unless he's like Willy Wonka and he's having some kind of a contest? What a bizarre request. But anyway, if I know anybody, I'll let them know. Give me some more details. Does he have a Twitter account? All right, we are just sitting out here on the edge of town. What is it? Today's the 8th. So tonight we're going to go into the symbols. We're going to mind map the symbols. Slight departure from our usual Metascript breakdowns, but I don't want to ignore that aspect of it, of the show. Now, what about there's something else. There was another short shooting in Utah. I think it was a Mormon church thing. I'll have to dig into that because sometimes these big psyops just take up all of the space. I feel bad for these underappreciated crisis actors who try to do their best to manipulate us and nobody's even watching. Again, if you ordered the books, you can check your inbox, check the tracking numbers. They are en route. I don't think I'm going to be selling any more signed copies directly, but over the website, but I will have them in person. And so now we're getting close. We're getting close to the place where I can begin the real promotion. And this is why I'm doing all these mind maps and infographics, because I want to ideally read a chapter from the book and then describe its real world application. And then, what are the benefits? What's the point? Because a lot of people will ask that, because a lot of people don't think for themselves. Like, why does it matter? What difference does it make? Well, I can explain that in a number of ways, why it matters and what difference it makes. And part of it has to do with the very notion of peace of mind as an alternative to mind war, and the pointlessness, the futility of mind war. And I'm not trying to be black pill when I'm saying we have no power on the world stage. I'm not trying to be demoralizing and saying, it's all futile, even though it is. What I'm saying is that we don't have any power on the world stage. Disengage from it, detach from it. You have power and agency off world stage. Your voice isn't going to be muted and ignored. Your insights, your observations aren't going to be marginalized from the off world stage perspective. The only issue is there's never been a platform for this, but we're the ones starting it. It's very Kafkaesque to see through something, and then none of the people in that field are able to corroborate in any way. I mean, imagine if your interpretation of geopolitics of the world today, imagine if you got it all from Owen Schroyer. You would not have a clue. These people are all playing into the emotional manipulation, the collective gaslighting, the learned helplessness, and the passivity, passive consumers of psyop slop. Okay, his name is Sir Benjamin Slade. He's a British baronet. He's looking for a younger wife and a male heir to secure his Somerset estate. Again, I don't know why he has to go public with that. Couldn't he just order one? Like, don't they have mail order brides? Like, I mean, people in his position don't need to ask social media. I mean, unless he's doing some kind of a game show, like a Squid Games like thing. But anyway, I don't know anyone who's looking for a 79-year-old multimillionaire. He's probably lying. Could be a ruse. One of the themes in Pluribus is very much Soylent Green like, by the way, because the hive mind is very much like environmentalists. They are very much about preserving nature above man, even though it means that we might have to make some cuts. And this is also such it's a trope. It's like every other science fiction movie is Earth can't handle us. So at some point in the future, we get rid of us, except for a small few. And that's part of this hive thing. And the hive mind and this alien invasion theme has been in many of these movies, even Paradise, which I haven't seen yet. It's all got to do with mass extinction. I think part of that is just inculcating misanthropy into us so that we feel like, yeah, we ought to be eliminated. Look how bad we are. And this might have a long-term agenda. Convince them that they're terrible, that they can't rule themselves, that they need an external authority like aliens to come save us from ourselves, aliens or God. And many people conflate the two. And once people accept that as a premise, as an eventuality, that we're going to need to be helped out here by our space brothers or a higher power, once people accept that premise, then they can introduce things like AI. And they'll sell people on the idea that we're better off delegating a bit more. And I'm fine with certain things. Like, let's delegate Taco Bell to robots and all fast food and all restaurants and convenience stores. You know, convenience stores getting shot is kind of a big thing. Getting shot up, getting robbed. It's a dangerous job. Well, when you have the Terminator behind the cash register, it's not going to be such a big deal. Lickety says they need our loosh since they don't have any. Well, there is something to that. I mean, the term loosh has a funny origin, but it's tied into this old concept of the soul spark, that we are like, we are stars, we are light embedded in matter. We are a spark of divinity, each of us. But the material world is a contrivance, a trap designed to disabuse us of our connection and our understanding of our celestial origins. In other words, they want you to give up your soul and become a strict materialist. And I think that's funny. Because like, I'm not a believer, but I know what I know, and I know enough to not rule out the possibility that we have agency and free will. Like, to me, that's not even a debate. But there are people who are strict materialists who will debate, oh, we don't have free will. Oh no, we're just apes. Like, speak for yourself. Let me hear you say it. And let me hear you call yourself an animal with no free will and agency. Oh, I'm just an animal. I'm just a. It's like, okay, you can identify as such. I don't want to hear you mocking furries. But I don't want to be condescended to by those who have accepted that as somehow some higher form of knowledge or a higher understanding, as though we don't have any blind spots, as though we have figured out everything there is to know. Oh, yeah, this is it. We figured it all out. We know all there is to know about the human mind. By the way, I think that I want to get back into publishing, like this topic of creating an IPS library. We talk about the movies that we watch that are relevant to the situation, but I want to get into the books. And I found a few books that I want to produce, or rather, republish, public domain books. Like Edward Bernays' Propaganda, that's public domain. So I'll probably publish the IPS version of it with a forward explaining the significance of it. We're talking about Edward Bernays. I also want to do a quote book or something. I've been finding some great quotes by people who are, in the matrix, not really necessarily people I follow, but people who've made astute observations. And I found this old quote by Noam Chomsky, of all people, in which he describes how the masses are incapable of being rational, so they're better off delegating their authority to a specialized class. It was just a very revealing statement. And the people who talk about the masses as though the masses are dumb animals, they obviously don't think of themselves as part of the masses. Like when I hear truthers talk about, oh, those normies, those NPCs, they're just soulless. They can't wake up. I'm like, okay, so you're basically saying that you're awake, right? That you've ascended. Like, I don't think the fact that 99% of the people fall for the stuff means that the people are dumbed down. It means that they have a blind spot with regard to worldview, which is something that's largely outsourced, things that you take for granted. And I don't think that's really a strike against someone. It's just a lack of situational awareness. But it says more about the skillfulness of the liars in charge than the believers themselves. Sprightly Sprite says, Amusing Ourselves to Death. Oh, yeah, Neil Postman. I have two of his books. I have Amusing Ourselves to Death. And I think it's called, what is it called? What's the subtitle? The subtitle has something to do about discourse in the age of mass entertainment. And then the other one is called Conscientious Objectors or Conscientious Objection. In fact, when I say that I'm a conscientious objector from the Psywar, I actually got that phrase from Neil Postman. And it's Neil Postman who, in discussing Huxley, coined the phrase sea of irrelevance, which we often use when we talk about the raft atop the sea of irrelevance and everyone else sinking to the bottom, submerged, because you can't be buoyant if you got a pocket full of red pills. The propaganda mules drown. Look at he says, I give you my permission to use many good quotes. I will. You should do a quote book. I mean, okay, there's another one from Dune Messiah, Frank Herbert. They are not mad. They are trained to believe, not to know. Belief can be manipulated. Knowledge is dangerous. So this distinction between believers and knowers is something that I make often. We're conditioned to be believers. We're conditioned to conflate the two. That's why so many people who are mere believers are so arrogant and pompous and ready to fight over it because they think it's knowledge. It's like, no, you're carrying counterfeit knowledge. It's like monopoly money. It's fake. Your beliefs have no value. No, your currency doesn't have any value here in the off-world stage. Conscious Reality says, I just got done arguing with Globehead about the Earth spinning. Yeah, now where are we on that? I mean, the best you can do is walk away saying, okay, you believe that to be true, but you can't claim it to be knowledge. There is a leap of faith required to go along with NASA's version of things, this science fiction infused hyper reality. It's not like you can see for yourself. And we're still lacking any picture of the curve I've seen from Earth or any indication of a curve. It's just purely subjective. So one of the good things about that whole debate is it got people to stop lying and admit the limits of their knowledge and where you're kind of left in this position of having to have faith in government, have faith in your propaganda because you can't know for yourself. And you don't have to be a believer. If you don't have enough information, you can be agnostic about it. Generally speaking, with regard to matters of science, you can't be agnostic. That would be an appeal to ignorance. For example, to claim that chemtrails exist that contradicts the known, testable, repeatable, observation-based science. But you can't really say that the Mars rover and the footage of it constitutes scientific evidence in the same way. You can't test it the same way. You can't measure it the same way. And also, when you look at the monopoly on that content, the space agencies, and the decades of fakery and funny business, there's no reason to trust any of it. NASA's a liar. And there are some who are trying to bring in this, like Joe Rogan, for example, that, yeah, the moon landing was fake, but we had to trick the Russians. But they don't say space is fake or space travel's fake. Anonymous says, I don't waste my time arguing with brainwashed globe heads. If I see someone questioning the globe, I will let them know the globe is a lie. Yeah, it's a complicated discussion because the way the media has framed it, to not believe NASA is to therefore be some kind of backwards Bible earther, anti-science. And like, no, I'm not anti-science. And I found that to be alarming when anti-science got injected into that whole conversation. But the people who take it for granted, we're talking about worldview, the model, as we're trained to believe it is. The issue with that too is that you're talking about people who believe all the fake news. So what does that tell you? They don't know how much of the news is fake, but we're going to trust their opinions about this. It's all based on what they see on the screen. It's like, deep fakes weren't invented with generative AI. They just used to use more rudimentary special effects. I had this epiphany, though, a few months ago. I decided I am no longer going to debate with people who have settled opinions because I've made the same points for 5 years with anti-vaxxers, with Mandela affected, with chemtrail huffers for 5 years. And not one of them, and I'm not joking, not one single believer in any of these scenarios has actually listened to my evidence. All they do is they get emotional, they get angry, and they accuse me of working for the airlines. Like, I'm getting frequent flyer miles from Delta and Southwest every time I debunk chemtrails because I'm a shill. And I don't believe in global warming because big oil pays me. And oh, yeah, Dr. Fauci drops off a suitcase full of cash here. Every week I push back against anti vaxxers. I guess for such people, independent opinions don't exist. It's the case with them. But no, I have independently arrived at opinions that go against the orthodoxies of Trutherville. So I'm like, well, believers are going to believe. And your belief is inferior to my informed disbelief and my knowledge. I did my best on the debates with some of these characters because to me, it's not about shape. You don't even have to bring up shape. Really, it's about worldview and how you got it. And when it comes down to it, I think it's more complicated than that anyway. I don't think the model we've been given, the scientific model, the reductionist model, can be complete without including man as part of it. Not merely another species of animal, but I think we're more integrated into reality itself. And I don't think reality, the universe, I don't think of it as a static collection of objects floating in space. Rather, it looks that way, it's experienced that way, perhaps. That's how it's being presented, like it's this thing that exists. But I don't believe the universe exists until it's experienced. I think it's a process of coming into being, of information, of light, essentially light condensing into matter as it's being processed by sentient perceivers. And I don't think you can separate the universe from man. I don't think we're latecomers to the scene, accidents of evolution, lucky, and ultimately doomed because we are going to destroy ourselves. And at some point, the sun's going to burn out and we're not going to exist. Like, I don't believe that. I think the universe is actually somehow integrated with us in a way that has to do with the idea of matter being a substrate of mind, of spirit. But I can't prove that. But they can't prove their static model. I mean, without a great deal of, I think, willful ignorance about certain things. Like certain things have just been sidelined or relegated to paranormal or quote spiritual. And one of the reasons I like demystifying things is I think that certain types of information are deliberately obfuscated. And I think a lot of that has to do with the human mind. Laser say Nick F is controlled op. Oh, Nick Fuentes is just a funnier, a younger version of David Duke. If you listen to his rhetoric, have you seen Black Klansman? Black Klansman, Spike Lee, major meta scripture, by the way. We'll have to discuss his work. Black Klansman has this David Duke character who looks just like Nick Fuentes with the mustache, and he's got this America First. And they toast to America First. Nick Fuentes is a mainstreamer. You know, these doesn't matter if you're alt media, you're not actually anti establishment, but his worldview, his perspective does not dispute the major claims of the mainstream media. Maybe he argues about certain points, but he's not going to say, oh, this was fake, Charlie Kirk's still alive. They mock that stuff. Yeah, another thing about Nick, too, is he's a woke right. So he believes he's oppressed. So they call themselves Goy. Well, what does that mean? According to the woke right, that is a term that their oppressors use to describe them, although we've never heard it being used really. So they adopt it like their own version of the N word. And so they call themselves Goy. They use that phrase as a reminder that they're being oppressed and that they're less than. And their whole oppression narrative is just pathetic. But woke right politics, the Jew blaming J pillars and all that, I don't have any room for that here either. It's just intellectually dishonest and lazy, and it's just a weak overall take on things. Victim consciousness. It's also a hive mind. Like, I'm just a weak little individual. Let me gang up with people who look like me, and let me repeat the slogans they repeat. And hopefully, the tribe will gift me with a trad wife so I can replicate and create more copies of myself so we can compete numerically with these other groups that are being let in by the Jays. I mean, it is just so ridiculous. They're reducing themselves to this idea of like a race war, not in violence necessarily, but like a race to replicate faster than the other tribe. It's very tribal, and it's based on insecurity. Yeah, people who are still hooked on these narratives in 2025 are just, to me, they're looking like they don't do their homework or they don't think, or they're just looking for something to belong to. The only thing Fuentes has going for him is that in his delivery, he can be funny. But he's funny to me in the way of like a parody. Like he's a parody of extremism. The only reason I study him and others, the reason I need Charlie Kirk is I like to study the representatives of each point of view on the world stage. And so he represents a very specific set of views. I was not surprised at all to find that at America First Fest, he called America the Great Satan. Like he is just, I don't know. I mean, like maybe he's going for shock value, but I'm waiting for Nick Fuentes to start saying death to America. It's like, just say it, Nick, death to America. No, I'm not wearing camera glasses. I saw some. I saw this pair of non-prescription glasses, or like $700. You wear it on your face, and it's an AI assistant. So you're just going around, and it'll basically be. I mean, it'd be useful. You're reading or something, and you want to define a word, or you want to know if something's real or fake. I mean, it's just this. You're basically a cyborg at that point. Speaking of controlled op shills, Candace Owens is definitely done. I don't know if they're going to get away with it. I guess they will. Daily Wire has her old podcast Twitter feed, and they're using it to troll her. And it looks like interference, torturous interference. It looks like you could consider it to be something of a case for defamation or even infringement, copyright infringement, the right of publicity. It's the type of stuff that my stalker used to do to me. And if you're creating a confusing to bystanders, some confusion about the authenticity of it by design, they might have crossed the line. But there's no way Candace Owens is going to sue Ben Shapiro for infringement or slander or libel when she's being sued for hundreds of millions of dollars by the wife of the president of France. And I believe she just got a big win against 8 of her online stalkers. No, we don't have any common grounds with Nick Fuentes. He's just a crisis actor. And is he really even that funny? I don't know. Again, I think it's funny as parody. Are his ideas dangerous? I don't think so. In fact, if anything, I think his job is to neuter the ethno fascist section of the far right white nationalists. Like, I think his whole point is to deflate them, to demoralize them, to make them into a joke. The only people allowed to say these really incendiary things are often the people who have no credibility. Like they have, you know, this like it's tokenism in a lot of ways. But I see other elements of it, like the fact that the leader of the new neo Nazis is half Mexican. Like his own followers hate him for it. So that's not much of a leader. You can't really build on that. And then they had a Klansman come out spewing all kinds of anti-Semitic rhetoric, and it turns out, Kanye West, the Black Klansman thing, which he started that. If you look into Kanye West, there's a lot between him and Candace Owens. It starts with White Lives Matter. It goes back years. So if you follow them too, and then Candace Owens' husband and how he was CEO of Parler, you can see that these are political agitators. And it seems like they choose individuals to carry the messages who aren't credible. Yeah, Nick Fuentes isn't comedy club funny. He's just kind of riffing off things. His delivery is kind of funny. I think it's funny. Maybe it's just the way he waves his hands when he talks. But his views just aren't realistic. I mean, his opinions are all wrong and ugly. His rhetoric is pretty bad. But I don't get the sense that he's serious. Like, that's what I'm saying. I don't think he's serious. He cannot be taken seriously. And that's why he's allowed to hold that position. I'm still on 2B. It gets a lot darker. I'm just going by layers here. So there's a casino. You can't see it from here. It's at the base of the mountain. And I was just studying it. And I have to go find out. But I think that the architect designed it to look like the mountain peaks behind it. Like, I think it follows the shape of the Sandia crest. So I have to look it up online. The Sandia Casino. Sandia, which means watermelon. You can't see it now, but usually this time of night, they're pretty much red, which is where the mountain gets its name from. Dr. Back Ashworth says, I remember years ago, Owen Benjamin played a clip of Fuentes claiming he's a trans. Yeah, that's right. Well, the same has been said for Owen Benjamin as well. Owen Benjamin fits right in with the MAGA van, woke right. I think he was given a collection of talking points. I don't believe that he's organic. The most banned comedian, and after Charlie Kirk gets shot, he's like, oh, we need digital ID to go online. We can't just let anybody go online because look at this violence. This leftist Antifa was radicalized on the internet. No more free speech. I'm like, you're the most banned comedian on earth, and you're advocating for censorship? Nothing sus about that. But I think that Owen Benjamin's beef with Nick Fuentes stems from the fact that Nick Fuentes is objectively funnier. Owen Benjamin's the so-called comedian, but why does Fuentes get all the laughs? Why does he get all the attention when they're saying the same basic points, the same woke right talking points? I'm not saying Fuentes could deliver funny stand-up, but I don't know if Owen can either. I haven't seen it. And it's not a dig. Like, I do watch comedy. A lot of it's redundant, I've noticed. Anonymous says, what is it with all these comedians into politics in Trutherville? See, that's a very good question. And we've noticed this for some time. Joe Rogan, Eddie Bravo, Owen Benjamin, Matt Hyde. There's a lot of these right-wing comedians who are into conspiracies. What is with that? Well, I think comedians are in a unique position. Comedians are able to float ideas out there that go beyond the acceptable discourse and get these reactions and maybe even diffuse them. They're perfect disinformation agents, that's for sure. But it has been a tactic. There has been this thing conflating right-wing conspiracy theory with comedians who aren't all that funny. And I think they're part of a gatekeeping operation. Right. It's definitely getting a little darker. I think it's going to rain. If I had my watercolors, what I sometimes I'll do is I'll do my watercolors with the rainwater, especially if I have watercolor pencil. But I'll use the locally sourced rainwater to thin the paints. Dr. Bass Ackworth says, made by Jim Bob, he is sus AF. Well, at this point, if somebody isn't off-world stage, they're kind of irrelevant. Sus or not, agents or not, I'm not even asking. I don't even care. If your opinions are coming from the mainstream or alt mainstream box, your establishment. Bottom line. And if your establishment, you're doing the dirty work of Big Brother, you're spreading Big Brother's propaganda. If you're a propaganda mule, an unpaid crisis actor, a volunteer in the Psywar against your own interests, yeah, you're not all that relevant or insightful or aware. Like one of the things that we're going to see as this year progresses is the outgrouping of those with the alt mainstream position, with that perspective. Anybody with that as their starting point, we're talking Owen Schroyer level of thinking. Yeah, you're going to be at some point outgrouped, not by me, but by the process. The fake news wood chipper, which is what we are, which is what the think tank is, isn't going to have room for fake people. They will go into the wood chipper with the fake news. But there's like a grace period that we've given here. Like we've given a grace period. We put the information out there. And look, some people are evolving. Mr. E, who I don't endorse all of his views by any means. He's a religious person. He thinks the world is run by what is it, EGIs, like Trump's a woman or whatever. Like that's fine. You can believe that if you feel like it. Seems like a lot of work to sustain such a nonsense belief. But I hear him talking about concurrent programming. That's cutting edge, despite the other things. Concurrent programming breaks the matrix, and we introduced that. And I'm glad to see it being used. This blending tool, it's called it starts with a T. It's rice paper. It's spelled similar to tortellini, but it's not a dish. I'll just look it up. I can't right now. I also have these water soluble graphite pencils that I should be using, where you draw and then you use the paintbrush and water to thin it out. Yeah, Mr. E's funny. His music's funny. I mean, I like his channel. And one other thing the only reason I even notice him is that I've been saying for a couple of years that I don't respect transvestigators that won't put their face on the screen. because they make these ridiculous claims. And if you're going to make ridiculous claims based on how other people look, I want to see your face to make sure that you're not, one of them. And I don't think it's a coincidence, or maybe it is. Maybe it's just maybe he just did it on his own. But he started putting his face on camera. I'm like, okay, at least he's owning what he's putting out there. It's about accountability. I don't respect anonymous people, like anonymous truthers. Like, that's a contradiction to me. Why are you acting like a snake in the grass? What do you got to hide? So I appreciate the taking of accountability for his bad ideas by putting his face out there, because it shows that he's real, even if he's wrong. How do we know he's not FTM? Well, we technically don't. I haven't gone through the process. I don't know any. I think fakeologists could do an investigation on him. Is he a investigator? You just need to use a transparent skull. There's some one universal skull, and if his eyes don't line up, he's a woman. That's how it works. Or you can look at his finger lengths. I don't know the science on it, but I think they said if your ring finger is longer than your index finger, you're a dude. That's misinformation. And Begonia kind of hints at it. In Begonia, the main character is breaking down how he can tell that Emma Stone is an alien. He's like, oh, you can tell she's an alien. Look at the spacing of the hair on her head. Look at the hair follicles. And now look at her jaw to forehead ratio. So she's unconscious, and he's breaking down for his friend how you can discern an alien from a real person. And he sounds just like a transvestigator. I'm like, okay, that's got to be a dig. And I know it's a dig. Because later in Begonia, they start showing the flat Earth map. I don't want to give you any spoilers because the movie's worth watching. So in a few months, I'll talk about it, but you got to see it. You got to see it for the end. But it does bring up the idea of mass extermination, like humanity being. I guess, what was that environmentalist movement? Extinction Holocaust? We're extincted. We go through a mass extinction because we're so bad for the earth. I think that's always the bottom line. We didn't recycle enough. If we don't recycle enough, if we don't meet our recycling goals and reduce our carbon footprint enough by 2030, the aliens are going to eliminate us. How similar is that to, if we don't change our wicked ways, God's going to flood the earth? Now just replace God with Gaia. Replace wickedness with pollution, and then replace the ark with bunkers. You see the same story? We're living in a myth. They have constructed a world stage that has mythology built into it. There are people who literally believe that Noah's Ark was not a myth, and they still want to worship that creator. I'm like, no, I can't even swim that well. I think the idea of drowning with all my friends and families and pets, I think that's horrifying. And if your God construct did that, like, we're not cool. I don't care if he had to kill the giants or the Nephilim. Whose fault was that? Take some responsibility for yourself. Maybe you should spend some time in hell thinking about how you screwed up by not protecting your flock from your own creations, your rapacious angels, and then blaming us for it. Like, no, God can go. The God of the Bible, the God construct, should serve a term in hell. It doesn't have to be eternal, but just long enough to think about what he did. You can't scapegoat the innocent and kill them en masse because of your own screw ups. So I don't even like that story. Speaking of myths, I was thinking about how, okay, you got Adam and Eve is the first woman, and she brings knowledge of good and evil, causes man to fall, and then we have to live in this world of chaos because we've been kicked out of Eden. But you see, it starts with a woman. In the Greek myth, you have Zeus, and the first created woman is Pandora. And Pandora opens the box and releases chaos into the world. And then what happens? Zeus has to flood the place. Zeus has to flood the place to clean up. So another flood myth, another woman starting it all. And then you look at the Gnostic concept where you have the source of all life. It's not the Christian God, it's this amorphous, impersonal source of light, like a big bang, but just consciousness. And everything emanates from it. And out of its forehead is born the first woman called Sophia, the embodiment of wisdom. Well, it's Sophia who creates this character, which they refer to as the demiurge. And the demiurge is such an embarrassment that she hides him in these clouds. So the demiurge wakes up and he thinks he's God. And he creates the world, he creates man, and forces the byproduct of not only a false creator who's imprisoning him, but that this entire dilemma, this entire ordeal is the result of the first woman. Like, it's a recurring theme. And I think this might be some mythical way of conveying the idea that your hardships begin when you're delivered, from the moment that you're born. Busy says, don't look into Pandora's box. Hey, you got to watch, if you haven't seen the Barbie movie, and I did a big I've done breakdowns on it. The Barbie movie contains all these ideas. I refer to her as the horror of Barbulon. But there's a great deal we could unpack with that particular icon, that archetype. This is going to be really fun. I think 2026 is going to be great as we go into the weeds, as we go into the details, because we've done a lot of research. We've discussed these things in depth, but I'm looking forward to the great deconstruction project as a way to consolidate a lot of our information and ideas on these matters, creating the body of content that will represent the foundation for the off-world stage. So you got the off-world stage perspective, but what are the fruits? What's the result of it? What happens if you have this perspective? What is the body of information or research you have arrived at? Well, that's what we're going to be producing. That's what we're going to be consolidating and organizing very soon, starting tonight. Yeah, exactly. The opening sequence of Barbie tells it all. Kubrick references, but Margot Robbie herself, the actress, is one of these. We have meta scripters, but you also have actors who are repeatedly represented in multiple movies with specific messaging attached. So she's been in she was in Babylon. She was in Suicide, what was it called? Squad. I think she was in Asteroid City. I was told. I have to rewatch that now because the friends I was with couldn't stand it and we had to walk out. But Margot Robbie, as an archetype, embodies the New Age goddess, the Thelemite OTO goddess of Aleister Crowley, the Scarlet Woman. Nothing Major says, sorry, I'm very Islamophobic. I'm from Oldham, England. Hello, everyone. I guess I'm just religionophobic. Like I'm like phobic of all the religions. What is it called if you're scared of God? Deophobic? Not that I'm scared of God. I mean, I am, and I'm not even anti-religion. I'm just non-religious. I come here as an alien anthropologist. My agenda here is truth, is discernment, is the delineation between real and fake. My purpose here is like an alien anthropologist. It's observations, and the building of a model to explain what we're experiencing, what we're saying, filling in the blanks, and then acknowledging the false explanations as such. No, I'm not really again, I'm not anti-religious. I'm not even anti-God. I'm just open-minded. And when you talk about these things, you get pushback. All right, well, it looks like our audio is kind of cutting out. It's also getting dark here. I'll have to finish this one when I get back. But the only religion that you need to be concerned about today, forget about Islam or whatever religion scares you. The religion that should scare you